Welcome to our first official episode of Business Owners Speak Out. And today we have our guest on, and it's Scott Davis. So welcome, Scott Davis.
Hi, Lydia. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. So Scott is a client of ours, and I asked him to come on because, well, we're going to interview all our clients and basically everybody in Houston to see, how they got started. And I know Scott is really good at public speaking. I've seen him speak before. He did a 2024 forecast last year, and I went to support him, not expecting to enjoy it. It was actually really entertaining. And I actually paid attention and learned a lot. So I appreciate that. So Scott, welcome. Glad to have you. And
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
yeah, and for those of you who are listening, we have been trying to record this for, I don't know, like an hour and a half now because technical difficulties, we're having some trouble. So we're on Zoom or we're, doing this virtual and it's just going to have to work. The information will all be still great. So before we officially get to the interview, Scott, this is not something I prompted you with, but I want to see how quick you act on your feet because I know you always have something on your sleeve, up your sleeve. So, Scott, start us out with a joke.
Okay, so when Einstein died, the first person he met in heaven had 180 IQ. And he said, great, we can talk about physics and math. And the next person he met had about 140 IQ. And he said, oh, we can talk about politics and art and philosophy. The third person he met had a 90 IQ. And Einstein asked him, which way do you think interest rates are going to go?
If you can't tell, Scott is in the real estate business, and he'll tell you all about that. But he always has these cute little jokes and stuff throughout his presentations and even during coaching that I appreciate. So I figured he'd have something he could share with us today. So, Scott, why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are? Or I guess let's start with what's your company? What do you do and who do you serve?
Sure. So I have a company called Location Strategy, and we do real estate consulting. So we work with, you live in a house or an apartment, you work in an office building, you go eat lunch at a restaurant in a shopping center. All of those were built by developers. Mm-hmm. And so we work with developers to help them figure out how big does the shopping center need to be? What tenants go in there? How many houses do we need to build in the neighborhood? And how much should we sell them for? And so at the very front end of the process, we help them to evaluate the market and the demographics and the economics to get these projects to the right scale and mix to fit what we expect demand to be.
Awesome. So you're creating studies on the land before a project is even
That's
really
right. Created. Exactly.
Awesome. And so tell us how you got there. How did you get to this point to where you said, I'm going to own my own business and this is what it's going to be?
Well, I was a real estate broker for a long time. So a long time, I sold the land to them. And I used a lot of the same strategies and techniques. I have a degree in geography, and I think I was 40 before my parents stopped worrying about what I was going to do with that. And I have a master's in city planning. So I knew a lot about how this process worked. And so, when you're selling land, when you're selling a building, you're selling a construct, a rent roll, credit quality. When you're selling land, you're selling a concept. And so you need to be able to explain to somebody what this concept is. And so I did that for a long time until the financial crisis in 2008. And like 75% of my clients went out of business. And so I went into the consulting side where I would advise clients. And I've been doing that for, I guess it's 10 to 15 years by that now. And so there were a couple large companies that I had worked for, Metro Study here in Houston, and then I went to work for Myers, which is now Zonda, and those two merged. And I got a call from my boss one day and telling me about the merger. And I said, well, I don't know if I want to work with you guys again. And they said, well, that's good news because we don't think we want to work with you again either.
Oh, no.
And so one of my clients, Mike Zerolo, is now with Land Advisors Capital, who does lending for these large developments, said, I don't care whose name is on the report. I want your opinion on it. And so really encouraged me to start the company, and I had a lot of great support from past clients and the marketplace. And so that was 2019. And I think we did about 10 studies that year. and we've grown. Last year we did 65 studies in the state of Texas.
That's awesome.
So all over the state, I get to see all kinds of great projects and great communities. Grateful to be here where we can build things and we're growing. And so that's kind of how I ended up here.
That's awesome. And 65, is that the most you think anybody's done in Texas
I've
last year?
that a couple of clients have told me that it's probably more than anyone else has done. So
That's awesome.
we're proud of that achievement after making it through the first year in 2019 and the pandemic when everyone canceled all their deals and didn't need any studies at all. So it's been a long road, not always enjoyable, but now it feels pretty good to have made it through there and be where we are today.
Yeah. And so you just mentioned something that maybe we'll just go down that route. You said not always enjoyable. So what are some of the maybe the trials or tribulations that you've been through as a business owner that you've learned from or that you can help somebody else avoid if they're listening to this podcast?
Well, that's a great question. So I would say the first thing is you cannot do it all by yourself. In our business, in some sense, my advisory opinion is the product. I have to review all the studies and reports, and so a lot of times I have overlap between my duties as the business owner and growing the business with the chief producer. And one of the things that I wish that I had done is look for help earlier than I thought I needed it. And I know you and I have talked about that before too, but that's probably the biggest one is you got to get that help in there because at some point you will not be able to grow anymore when you become this huge bottleneck for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the second thing is develop some standards, what you're looking for in terms of hiring people, stick to those. At times we have brought people on board out of convenience or, in past jobs, one of the things I learned about hiring, I used to hire real estate brokers when I was a real estate broker. I probably interviewed 2,000 people for that job. And one of the things that I learned was you have to see the person for who they are and not who you want them to be. It's great to think about the potential that they have because that's why you want to hire them. But you want to make sure that it's them showing that to you and not you reading that into them.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple instances with employees that it just didn't work out. So you got to let them go.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I know I've done some hiring here for us at Action Coach, and I've definitely been in those moments where I projected the hope and, oh, I really want her to work out, or I really want him to work out, and given them the benefit of the doubt and quickly proven wrong. It's like, follow the
Right.
system, right? And we have a hiring process for a reason, so don't let emotions get too tangled up in it. But I appreciate that. I
Exactly.
love that. I love that you said, finding help. I think that is one of the biggest things that when we get our clients to start hiring, yes, there is some hassle in management of team. Again, we have ways of systemizing that, but ultimately what you're doing is you're just allowing yourself more free time by delegating. And if you do it correctly, then ultimately it's a really good thing. So I think that's awesome. And starting with that mindset is important as well. So
Well, it is. I think if you don't have people helping you do the work, you don't have a company, you have a job.
exactly. Just over broke. You bought yourself a
Yeah.
job. 100%. Awesome. So Scott, what any future plans for the company? Anything new coming up that you want to talk about, or any events, speaking engagements, anything like that?
Sure. Well, uh, we're not speaking, but we will be at a BizNow event on the 22nd of February in Houston about master plan communities. So we'll have a booth there
Awesome.
coming up. We're looking at an event in April to recognize our 5th anniversary of being in business.
Yay!
So
Yeah.
it'll be on April 2nd. We've got that coming up. And now we've gotten to the business to the point where we're no longer in survival mode where we need to get that next set of projects in to pay the next month's bills. So we can really begin to start to look at what do we want to do with the business. And so there's really two areas that we're looking at. One, we're looking at geographic expansion. So if any of your listeners have candidates and that might be a fit for the kind of work that we do in Dallas or Austin or San Antonio, we'd be happy to talk to them. We are also expanding into a new business line of doing a full set of what we call due diligence studies. So when one of our clients uh, goes to develop a project, they will raise money and they'll put out a prospectus. And if you've ever invested in even a stock or a mutual fund, you'll get a prospectus in the mail. And it talks about everything you need to know about the company and the fund and whatever. And so, since these are real estate projects that people are invested in, I mean, that's our backyard. And so, we're going to start offering these full due diligence studies for investors on new projects. And so, we've got our first one kind of underway now. And we're excited to really start that new business line. I think
Awesome.
we can help provide a lot of clarity because of our real estate background versus what's available in that market today.
Yeah, and so 5 years celebrating that coming up. Any concrete? You said April 2nd ish. Do we have anything concrete, or is there a place where people can sign up for your newsletter to find more information?
They can go to our website to sign up for the newsletter, and that's locationstrategyllc.com. We send out a weekly chart book of our thoughts on the market. One of the highlights for me was seeing Chairman Powell's interview on 60 Minutes a couple weeks ago, saying that they would not wait for inflation to get to 2% to start cutting rates. We've been saying that in our newsletter for over a year. So that felt good to have our opinion confirmed that that's what is going to happen. And so these are the kind of insights that we reveal in our newsletter. It's free. We don't charge for it. Unless something dramatically changes, I don't think we're ever going to charge for it. It's really a way for us to stay in constant contact with our clients and our friends in the business. So please go to our website, sign up, 5:30 a.m. every Saturday. You'll get it like clockwork.
Love it. Love the providing value for people, even if they're not necessarily doing business with you, but they just want the value to help them grow. And so I also know that you've become somewhat of like a Twitter star. Social media is there's a lot of buzzwords around social media. Everybody should be present on social media. Businesses should be present on social media, blah, blah, blah. Nobody really knows how to do it, but it does seem like you've had a really good knack for Twitter. So tell us a little bit about what you do for social media and how that's kind of spun off and you've gotten some traction on it.
Well, so I had signed up for Twitter like a long time ago when it was kind of a novelty, or at least a novelty to someone that was over 40 in the business. So it really didn't make much of it. But there's a dedicated group of core commercial real estate professionals that have a kind of subgroup, or I don't know what you call it. It was originally a hashtag, but I think hashtags are déclassé these days. Nobody uses them anymore. But so really just engaging with people, and I'll take some of the stories out of our newsletters and I'll post those throughout the week. And it's weird. I'll post a thoughtful piece about this chart of interest rates and what it means to the market and house prices, and I'll get 250 views, and I'll comment on a post on the D'Amelio twins, and it'll get 400,000, right? But one that's gotten the most is it's been very interesting to see. For years, for decades, the average house size in America has increased. If you were to go to where, say, the kind of house that my grandparents or your grandparents would have bought in the 50s or 60s, it'd have been 800 to 1,000 square feet. And today they're like 2,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Well, now they're starting to come down. And Lennar has built a project in San Antonio where they're building 300 square foot houses and 600 square foot houses. And so I put in some photos, and they got like 1.5 million views. And like every now and then this topic comes up, and I just crank that post back out. So I would say I'm certainly not an expert on Twitter or social media, but for me, it's about a repetitive presence. It's about engaging with the discussion that takes place in whatever group you're in. engaging with people who have higher numbers of followers than you to expand what you get seen, and then come up with something that's a little creative or inventive every now and then. I like to say that my Twitter feed is a combination of real estate knowledge and snarky comments, but it seems to be working. So I've gotten
Yeah.
about 10% of our business came from Twitter last year. So it was pretty surprising about that. We've already gotten a couple deals this year. I've gotten to meet some great people that I've actually connected with in real life. For a long time I thought, hey, Twitter, what is that? What is it about? Why would somebody do that? And I would say for me, it's been a chance to meet people that I never otherwise would have gotten to meet and got to know. And we found providers through there and potential job candidates. It's been a great resource.
Yeah, I think what you're kind of hitting the nail on is that you're still building relationships. It's just another medium for building relationships. And so many people, when they use social media or marketing at all, it's just buy, 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 and there's no relationship building. And it sounds like what you're doing is you're still creating those relationships, having those conversations, posting value for people to comment on, to create the conversation, to then get to that next step of the engagement where we can eventually make a sale if that happens. But I think that's really important, that you got to create that relationship somehow. And you've just been using Twitter as a means as well as other forms.
It's about engagement. It's about intentionality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That I'm going to sit here and like find some people to engage with, develop relationships, and ask people questions about what they do. And some of it's like fun and that stuff too. It's not all business, but that's all part of developing a relationship. About making sure you're a rounded person. I'm 100% sales all the time.
Yeah. So if there was one thing that maybe it's one person you want to meet or an organization you want to get involved in or something, and somebody was listening and go, oh, I know that person, or oh, I know that organization, I'd like to connect you with. Is there something out there right now where you're like, man, I really want to get in touch with, that we can spread the word for? What could the listeners help you with?
Well, okay, so we're working on a project for a client right now. We're identifying RV parks, like recreational vehicle parks. And so if there's like an association of these parks, which we haven't really found one, or if they knew someone that owned one, we'd like to talk to them.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. And I guess you've already kind of given us the business advice from your mistakes. Is there any other business advice you'd want to give to somebody listening that could help them grow their business?
Well, I would say, Lydia, like, put yourself out there. Like, there's the quote from Louis Pasteur: "Chance favors the prepared mind."
Mm-hmm.
And we might restate that as you make your own luck.
Sure.
If you're out there and you're struggling and don't know what to do, honestly, the thing that I recommend to a lot of people is go start speaking about it. Like, if you want to be seen, as an expert, the fastest way to be seen as an expert is to write a book, give speeches. And if you give speeches, have autographed copies of your book available for sale. In fact, if you're getting paid for a speech, that's a good way to boost your fee, is to have these books included with the fee. But get out there and talk about it. And you might be nervous. But what I found is you're nervous speaking to that crowd, but that crowd is there to hear you and to gain insight. And they're hoping to get that. And what you'll find is that crowd is secretly like rooting for you to be successful. The only person there that thinks that you're going to fail is you. Mm-hmm. And so if you can get over that, they want to see you give a good speech, and they're going to come up and say how wonderful it is, no matter how terrible you thought it might have been. Yeah. So take advantage of those speaking opportunities. Get yourself identified as an expert. Go talk to any group that will have you, and it will do wonders for your
I totally
business, your
agree with
prospecting,
that.
your development. That's probably my number one tip is don't be afraid to put
Yeah.
yourself out there.
I love that. And that is one of the biggest fears from people, which we know are false expectations appearing real. But, anyways, we'll get on that on a different time. But a lot of the fears of people is public speaking. And it is one of the most powerful tools to, like you said, put yourself at a level of authority or to be able to use that as material for marketing or whatever it is. So, super important that you do overcome that fear and just put yourself out there. Like Scott said, I don't think I've ever walked into a room to listen to somebody speak and sat down and been like, man, I hope they mess up. Nobody does that except for that's
Nobody
what our
does that.
mind.
Nobody does
No,
that
that's
ever.
what our mind says. So it's just interesting how our mind does that. But yeah, I appreciate that. And something we haven't even talked about, Scott, yet, and I don't want to let you go before we talk about this is you have a very uniqueness about what you do compared to other people that do what you do. And a part of that, is that you are Texas based, so you're based here
That's
in
right.
Texas, and then you have this awesome kind of guarantee. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, we do. I know we talked a long time about this, but one of the first things you learn in the real estate business is time kills deals. And we're engaged at the beginning of a process, and a developer may have 90 days or 120 days to evaluate an opportunity. They can't wait 8 or 9 weeks to get a report. So we started guaranteeing that we have delivery within 30 days, and usually, sometimes we run a little bit longer than the 3 weeks. We can get them most turned in about 3 weeks.
Awesome. And what is your
And
competitor? Yeah.
yeah, so our competitors are 8 to 9 weeks.
Right.
And so it's been a great thing for us to offer to clients to get that information quickly. Our kind of tagline is fast, smart, affordable, locally based research, and that's important to us is that we get that turned in time for people to make a decision. Because a lot of times if you get a market study, it will just confirm what you initially thought. But sometimes we'll find something um, that you didn't know. Like, for instance, we were looking at a marina for a client, and we found, hey, there's demand for a 2,000 square foot restaurant there. Well, that may change your plans. Or, hey, I wanted to do a large lot deal. Well, it turns out the market's better if you do small lots. And so, kind of the hardest deals that we do are when someone's gone through that whole process and brought us in at the end. It works a lot better if they come in at the beginning and we can get this hammered out very quickly, so
Yeah.
they haven't spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on engineering and architectural fees and with the city and for a plan that might not be the optimal use for that
For
tract.
sure.
So that's why it's important to us to get those turned very quickly.
Yeah, and just on that note, I just want to clarify for people listening. And if you have other questions, if anybody else has questions for Scott, I'm sure he's happy to answer them. You can go find him on Twitter or email him. But what is the size of lot? So is it I'm buying a lot in a neighborhood and I want to do a study, or is it I'm buying you tell me about that.
Great question. So for a residential deal, we would need about probably 25 to 30 houses before it to be economical for us to take a look at it.
Cool.
So it'd be kind of challenging for most to do a single house. But once you have about 25 or 30, then it scales for us to look at it. And so we go all the way from there to, we just did one that was 4,000 houses. And so we're looking at a 12 to 15 year absorption time. We've done hotels, we've done marinas, we've done office buildings, shopping centers. We did a $5 billion project that was proposed for the next to the PGA headquarters in Frisco, up in Dallas.
Cool.
So, like I said, we'll go just about anywhere. I think I've been to all the top 50 barbecue restaurants in Texas.
Oh, that could be a whole nother
So-
episode we can talk about.
That could be.
Awesome. Well, Scott, is there anything we didn't cover today that you're like, man, I really wish you would have asked this, or I just really need people to know this about us?
Yeah, what I'd like people to know is that if you're getting involved in a real estate development deal, you're an investor in a deal, you want to make sure you get quality market research, and that somebody who knows the local market, who didn't parachute in from somewhere else, California or wherever, to tell you, what they think is happening in the market, because the markets are very different and work differently, and we understand it here. And we love working with developers, but ultimately what we want to do is help people to make the right decision for their real estate. And so when they go to look at that, don't hesitate to just give us a call. It's free to talk on the phone about your project. So don't worry about that. And if it's a fit for you and a fit for us, then we'd love to work with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott. And so we will post all of your contact details, but go ahead and tell them how they can reach you, phone number, whatever's the best way for them to reach you.
Sure. They can reach me by phone at 832-304-3478, which is 304 dirt.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so that's our main office line. You can email me at
Forgot your email?
I did forget my email, sdavis@locationstrategyllc.com. And then I think it's Scott Davis _CRE Twitter. So, yeah, no, I'd love to chat. It's always free to chat, and we like helping people make good deals. So let us help you do that.
Fantastic. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Scott, for sharing your story and sharing a lot of insights for everybody listening. And that is a wrap for our first official interview for Business Owners Speak Out. And we thank you very much.
Thanks, Lydia. Appreciate it.
All right.